Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. I am Nick Murawski. This is episode 243. We are a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, doing it live on our YouTube channel every Sunday night. Audio available everywhere you find your podcast. We got some sporting events competing with our episode here tonight. I know there's a pretty good NFL game and some MLB playoffs. So you are forgiven if you did not find us live. But if you're with us, we got some Sox conversation. Talk a little 05 World Series. You have to, because it is the week we celebrate that. And we try to also pick into what would happen if, we poach a little bit more from the Kansas City Royals. With me, as always, my co-host, my dear friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Hey, buddy. Happy spooky season. Hopefully you're enjoying it.
Sure am.
We've both done some trunk or treating over the weekend.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fall is in the air. It's crispy crisp.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And we got baseball games going on. I've got my, I think I'm just going to get a Phillies hat. I'm just infatuated with the Philadelphia Phillies. It's like I just can't get over how much
you were doing some tweeting this past week, or some posting or Xing, whatever is the term.
The most reaction I've ever got from anything I've ever put on social media. So it was fun.
But Pat, that tells you, and for folks that didn't see it, but I think we all are feeling it. You said something or posted something to the effect of, this is how the Phillies are playing is what I wanted for the White Sox, something like that. And that's how we all feel, man. And that caught a ton of reaction, and that was the correct thing. And by that reaction, you could just see, how many players on that Phillies team should we, were allegedly supposed to maybe have, or they were good fits or whatever.
We talked about Castellanos. Let's talk about him first of all. Right fielder. We've been in need for a right fielder for a long time. We don't have any need for that guy because he's not left-handed. Okay, granted, we still lack in left-handed power. Got it. But could have really filled that gap a long time ago if you wanted to spend some money. Kyle Schwarber. I think Kyle Schwarber we could have signed as a left-handed power bat. Again, not filling the need or the void that we've had in terms of defensive, right? A defensive player, but we really needed some power. The guy, all he does is hit home runs, and we could have signed him for about $8 million, I think, a year. He's not going to, whatever he gets in his next contract, it'll be more than $8 million a year. I can guarantee you that. We go back to the Bryce Harper thing, and the whole lack of, that solves. That would have solved a right field situation at the time. Now I know he's not playing a lot of right field anymore these days, but would have solved that issue. Left-handed power, leadership, just everything you want in a superstar. The guy has fallen in love with the city that he plays for. I think he would have done the same thing on the South Side. People would have followed that guy, no matter what. He's brash. He would have had a great personality. It would have been awesome to have him on. And then you have Zach Wheeler, right? Zach Wheeler, the big whole thing. And then his wife didn't want to come to the South Side or didn't want to come to Chicago. That whole thing that messed up. So you're talking about all these players that could have, would have, should have's, right? That we've had conversations about, and they all end up on the same team. It's almost amazing. We would have been happy with probably one or two of these guys, and they're all playing in Philadelphia. So I just had a lot of just like jealousy, I guess you would call it, over the Philadelphia Phillies. And I love the fact that, the whole talk about the atmosphere is it Citizens Bank? Is that the field?
I believe
wherever they play out in Philadelphia. The vibe is magical in this. And it reminds me of the very few moments in time where we've had on the South Side where the crowd is electric, and the blackouts, and then you can feel the energy in the stadium and it's shaking. We could have had that, Nick. We could have made a name for ourselves on the South Side with the energy and how electric a ballpark can be and how you wouldn't want to go onto the South Side at night to, play a baseball game. But that isn't happening, and it hasn't happened. So it's just, you think about all those things again, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but unfortunately we didn't want to open up the purse strings.
Yeah, we're going to talk later in this episode, just memories, World Series memories is the 18 years ago at this time, the 05 World Series was getting started. And I believe, by the time we record our next episode, it will be over. The World Series will be over. So we'll have to kind of, bunch all of our memories in. And it's like, well, why do we keep talking about 05? It's like, well, because there hasn't been anything else.
Yeah.
And I know people are sick of, why do Bear fans have to constantly talk about 85? Like, well, they haven't had anything else. Okay. And I'd love to talk about another World Series, just another Sox team that got to the World Series, let alone winning a World Series, but we haven't. Okay. So we celebrate that because it actually happened. Wear the shirt, wear the hat. That happened. It wasn't a projection. It wasn't it wasn't a prediction. It actually occurred. And why do we keep bringing up the Bryce Harper stuff? I hate bringing it up, but it keeps like manifesting because we haven't figured out right field. And Sydney in the comments, reminds us of Nomar Mazara. And so many others.
Then you go run a lap. You have to. Anytime you bring up Nomar Mazara, somebody's got to run a lap or do push-ups.
I'm watching the Bears game today, as I know so many people are, and they flash the graphic of how many quarterbacks that they have used since X year, and it leads the league, whatever. And my mind went to right field for the White Sox, or second base for the White Sox, and how many second basemen or right fielders we have recycled. And we're going to have to try to figure that out once again. But, we're not necessarily, Sox fans aren't just bringing this up. This Harper saga is coming from his teammate. Bryson Stott said this past week, said he predicted his buddy Bryce Harper would go to the Chicago White Sox when he became a free agent. He says he was way off, and Bryson now realizes Bryce and Philly are a match made in heaven. Well, we've all read the statement, that Harper had about his meeting with Kenny Williams, and Harper was trying to, talk it out. How is this going to work, and who's going to hit behind me and in front of me? He's like, oh yeah, you got Abreu. And boy, that South Side, man, those fans are going to come out. I cannot wait to play for that city. I think, I'm paraphrasing, but and now he finds that in Philly. It's like Philly gave him that. I think he could have absolutely had it in Chicago on the South Side. And boy, he just leans in to that fan base and to that experience, and they embrace him, all about the family, and they are giving him that right now.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. You bring up right field again, and I happen to be listening to the great Connor McKnight on White Sox Weekly this past week for a little bit. So I was driving around town, and he had mentioned, in the couple minutes that I was listening in the car, that Oscar Colas is not guaranteed to start the year in right field next year. So he may be starting again back in the minor leagues, trying to work his way back to the majors, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that he should be, because with the performance that he put on this past year, both offensively and defensively, we wouldn't just say, yeah, give him the job. But isn't it sad where we're at? Because if you rewind back to the beginning of the year, how excited we were about an Oscar Colas making the team. You're running around all over the South Side. You're seeing banners of him hanging up of, oh, he's going to make the team for sure, because they already got his face all plastered all over the place over here. So you think about it. It's like, boy, are we in a sad state of affairs still with right field, that we can't, manage to fill that hole. It's really a shame. And again, Oscar Colas, there's still something there, I believe, but boy, does he got a long way to go, and especially defensively, to give him an opportunity up here at the big leagues.
And I want to know where his mentality is at. Where is his confidence? Where is his headspace? Where is that at after everything he went through and what they did? And now, there might be some new, Daryl Boston's gone, who was in charge of the outfielders. Is that correct? So now he's got maybe someone new, thankfully, that's going to be helping out with the outfield, and you're going to have a new hitting coach in, and then there's probably some other moves that are going to be made in the coaching staff world. Chris Getz trying to find this culture, trying to find this identity. Well, does Oscar Colas fit into that? I don't know. So when you look at just those two situations, second base and definitely right field, as we've been trying to figure out for years, and then you again, we've been saying this episode after episode since the season ended. Well, there's all these other question marks, pitching and bullpen, and the rest of the roster, and I don't know, but we've got new executives. We've got new executives that are doing this for the one of them for the first time. Getz, this is new to him, and he brought some friends over, and there was an executive that is taking a different path this past week that caught a lot of attention with Sox fans. Kim Ng out of Miami got her start with Chicago, and I think early 90s. She was an intern. She went to the University of Chicago, I believe, and kind of worked her way up and did some things, and then wanted to branch out. And so could there be a homecoming? Miami Marlins, the write-up is basically they wanted to hire a president of baseball operations over the general manager, Kim Ng, despite her creating this playoff team this year. And, that led to the departure from the organization. This was on Monday last week, right after we dropped our latest episode, was offered a contract extension, turned it down, didn't believe that was how she thought things were going to go in terms of structuring. I think since then she's declined an opportunity to interview with the Red Sox. I've heard some rumblings that maybe the White Sox, maybe this could be a possibility. I've also heard, I think Heyman said on the Score, like, I wouldn't hold your breath, pretty much. And I think for me, Pat, and then I definitely want to get your input on this, because I've been thinking about this a lot over the week, and it really went crazy, with Sox fans on social media, like, I want her. And is it her, or is it the fact that we want an experienced executive, somebody to come in here that has had success, that can help figure this thing out? Because it's muddy, it needs some TLC. And maybe it is Ng who has experience with the Chicago White Sox. I'd be surprised if it's like, well, Chris Getz is going to be the person, but now we're all of a sudden going to hire somebody above Chris Getz. I think what I'm personally looking for is not necessarily Kim Ng, which I'm sure she would be great because she has experience and she's successful. I'm looking for somebody that has done this before.
Yeah.
Somebody with success that can shepherd Getz, that's from outside of the organization, that can help this on its way.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the whole dynamic. If that was to happen, that would be, I think, a great thing to happen for this organization. But it does seem a little bit backwards that she would take a role above Getz and be handed who her general manager is going to be, rather than, again, the timing didn't work out 100% right, because we didn't want to do a full search of any sort. We just wanted to take the path of least resistance. So that's why we're in this situation that we're in. But it seems a little strange to put someone in power to be in charge of a president of baseball operations. I'm assuming is the role that she'd want, given that's what she was, not going to be getting in Florida. Now you have to come in and you're inheriting a general manager that you didn't get a chance to pick. That doesn't seem very attractive to me. So unless it's type of thing, well, this is your job for the next several years, and you can give this general manager as long as you want to do the job that you think. So you give him 3 years to kind of rebuild it and see where he's at and assess at that point. But it's your organization to run, right? But it just seems a little backwards, and it's a way that the Chicago Bears have traditionally done things. Let's bring in a coach and then the general manager and then a quarterback. Nothing's ever lining up, right? You should have your president of your organization, that hire manager hiring the coach or manager that they want, and then they're going after the players that they want to fill out their roster. But the teams that I love do it all ass backwards. Let's get a general manager in, and then later on we'll get a president, and then that president doesn't really like that general manager, didn't pick it, and that general manager should have an opportunity to have at least their own coach that they should have, but that was inherited by that person. So now it's always a mess. So Yes, Nick, I think it would be a great hire by the Chicago White Sox and an outside the box type of thing. But it just seems to me, it wouldn't seem very attractive if I was her, right? Yeah, it'd be fun. Come home to the organization you started with, but you're telling me that Chris Getz is the person I'm managing. I don't know what her thought is on
Pedro
him.
Grifol has to stay here, and Getz has already made these.
If it's you, Nick, or me, you would think, if you're hiring me to be the president of this organization, I'm going to do it how I want to do it. You're not going to put any handcuffs on me on you while you take this job. And this is the person you have to keep employed for X amount of years. And then if you come in here and you want to change it all right off the bat, you should have that autonomy. Now that would be crazy town. I don't think that would happen, but yeah, you tell me, would you do that?
That's what has to happen though. Right. And that's what I got. So I don't know if I want to say excited, but very optimistic, after, Sale was traded and Eaton was traded. And I can't believe we're talking about this, but again, we're going to hit this anniversary too in early December, and nothing much has come of it. But they picked a direction, like they completely went in a different direction. Now I get it. The executives and everything, that was different, but we had a new manager coming in Ricky Renteria, and, they sent away our prized pitcher, a generational talent at that time, like unbelievable talent. And we're completely, it's going to be painful, but we're going in a different direction. And we think we're going to be much better on the other end. That's what you almost have to do now. But Jerry, the whole thing of, well, yeah, sure, it'd be great to have Kim Ang in or some other, very smart, successful executive, but really think Jerry is going to do it? We all know the White Sox way and the way Jerry thinks. That means Jerry doesn't want somebody in that's going to ruffle the feathers, that's going to tell him, well, all these other things actually have to change too. And we've got to double the amount of executives in the amount of the front office to really compete with some of these other teams. And you might not know some of these people I'm bringing in. You might not have a long-standing relationship with them, but you're going to have to trust me, an outsider, that I know what I'm doing. He doesn't want anything to do with that. Not at all.
And the other is, I just thought of this, Nick, and I don't know if this would have anything to do with it or not, but wasn't Miami the one of the teams that Kenny Williams had free autonomy to make trades with? That was like them and the Yankees. Weren't those the two teams?
That could be.
If memory serves, it was the Marlins and it was the Yankees, which apparently he had the relationships, and those were the deals. He could make those deals without, obviously talking with his general manager. I wonder if there was that relationship with there that would cause, you want me to come in and take the job of the guy that was my buddy, right? And maybe there was a relationship with Kenny Williams. There must have been, if he was the one doing deals. I wonder if she would be all that excited to go in there and take the job of the guy that got fired that she had maybe a good relationship with.
Yeah, maybe anything's possible, but if you're looking, it's business, it's not personal, it's business. Yeah. I want this role. I've earned this role, and I'm comfortable here, kind of coming back home where I started. Jerry's still around, and setting this organization straight. I've got the resume. You saw what I did. If I'm Jerry, and here's the other thing, all this stuff, whether it's Watts, whoever's telling you these things about Jerry wants to win. He wants to do everything, just everything in his power to win. Give me a break. Yeah. I'm sorry if you're still believing that. That's on you. You do whatever you want to do, but really, if he wants to do anything in his power to win, then Chris Getz isn't the guy. Pedro Grifol is not the guy. He's bringing in the smartest people he possibly can, and he's paying the money to get them, to work for him in the front office. It's simple as that.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, Nick. I mean, if the man really wanted to win, we'd have had more. I'm not saying World Series are hard to win, right? It takes a lot of luck and timing and guys hitting in the same time, right? In terms of when your young players are coming up and all that stuff. But you'd have to think if the guy really wanted to win over the past 40 years, there would have been more at least playoff appearances, more AL Central division winning, banners being raised. There would have been more than the 3 playoff series that we've won over the lifespan of his ownership. I think it's 3. It could be wrong. So you can't tell me
it would have been
in
John
right
Middleton
mind.
from Philly.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want those guys. We're going to go get them.
And it doesn't automatically mean that because you spend money, you're going to automatically win it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, see the Mets this year. I get that. But, those guys are going to continue to knock on the door until, eventually the door is going to be knocked in. So you can't continue to go about the way you think it works when obviously history tells you that it hasn't worked. It hasn't. It worked one time. And I'm never going to go to the way of a lot of people say, well, that was a fluke in 2005. That didn't. No, it was a well-constructed team that happened to hit on all cylinders and did it win, a weak division? Possibly. I think the Indians were still a really good team that year. So, all I'm saying is if you really wanted to go after it and you really wanted to win, you would at least got yourself the seat at the table in the playoffs more than you have.
Yeah. It just, you speak of 05, I mentioned it at the beginning of this episode. I mean, 18 years ago, here we are, the start of game 1. I think we watched game 1 together, if I'm not mistaken. Possibly.
Your memory is a lot better than mine, surprisingly.
I think we watched it in your parents' basement. Your dad had that really nice basement, and I think we watched game 1 there. And it's amazing when I could think about who I was with and where we watched these games, and it was a fairy tale. I just didn't want it to end. I'll be honest. I felt when they were about to sweep, okay, and it was like, in a weird way, I wanted them to win or lose at least one game just so it could keep going.
Yeah,
I didn't want it to end. The feeling of like this team, I don't know if we're ever going to see anything like this. We're just they almost in a weird way finished each other's sentences. We didn't know how close they necessarily were, but you watched them all season long, and it felt like they never were playing from behind. And just some of the magic that happened throughout the playoffs, from a ball going through Nomar Garcia Perez, who's the infielder that we used to have that was playing for the Red Sox?
Oh, Graffinino.
Graffinino, thank you. Went through Graffinino's legs.
I can still hear Chris Berman. Graffinino. Oh, no.
Oh, Chris Berman. Oh,
yeah,
boy. So
Chris
sorry,
Berman
buddy.
With the short sleeve dress shirts. God bless him.
The El Duque moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Brzezinski dropped third, and it just on and on. Burley coming in after having a few apparently, and getting some action out of the bullpen, and Bobby Jenks, the third reliever that we went with during the season, just a young, unproven guy coming in and taking care of business. I can go on and on and on. And this is the week, this is the week to really look back. And if you got the bound books, and if you've got the magazines and, all the stuff, all the YouTube clips, or if you're still running the DVD, God bless you, do it, man, celebrate it. Because the way this franchise is going, and you mentioned it is hard. It is hard to win a championship in any sport. And you could feel like things are owed to you. We felt, when this rebuild started, that things were owed to us as Sox fans. Like the way they built this team, and look at the collection, look at this roster. We should be winning a few divisions. We should have gotten a World Series. No. It's unfortunately not that way. So celebrate what has happened.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a great week to reminisce. And it's funny you bring up you get the DVDs out. I have it on the shelf behind me, the World Series DVD set. And I almost, if I had time, I would go through and watch at least the the year in recap DVD.
Did you, Pat, have a bottle? I had a bottle opener, I guess. You don't need to be that specific bottle cap. A bottle opener that had a little sound bite, and it was John Rooney with the call, and ground ball to Uribe, and the Howard's got it in the chat in the comments. And oh no, he's he's talking about the Graffinino. But no, this bottle opener, it had Rooney's call, and
I had that. I don't know if I still have it.
I had a pizza cutter too that played some audio. I mean, anything that had the World Series logo on it. You're just I had a pizza cutter. I still do somewhere.
And it talked to you?
Well, it wasn't specific. It didn't call me out by name, but
pizza again.
Pizza again, Nick. Oh boy, Red Baron, huh? It was. It had some sort of audio sound bite. Mine was destroyed by the dishwasher too, Howard. Yeah, it's more of just a collector piece right now. It brings back a ton of memories, and so that's this week here. Go celebrate.
Yes, let's all reminisce and enjoy, and maybe one day, 40 years from now, we can do the same thing again.
Luis Robert Jr. Maybe the only reason you're watching White Sox games, especially after the trade deadline. He's a Gold Glove finalist out there in center field. He has one Gold Glove on his resume. Kevin Kiermaier, Julio Rodriguez, Luis Robert Jr. There's your list. He's something special. I was having a conversation with somebody this past weekend, and I've had it with other Sox fans, over the months and maybe years, especially on Locked On when I was doing it, and we'd have conversations in the chat about who would you build around. And, I'm such a pitching guy. I really am. You got to have those horses. You got to have your aces. But in this particular situation, I know the history of the Chicago White Sox, and again, it might change with new executives, but still Jerry's in charge. I don't see Dylan Cease pitching beyond this current contract. So I'm not building around Dylan Cease. I'm not even wasting that because he's not going to be around very long in my mind. It's obviously Luis Robert Jr. And if you're even thinking about trading, which Getz says, everybody's untouchable, you're not going to, I don't know what you're going to get. How are you even going to get anything close to 1-to-1? You just almost have to say, I know I'm not going to get that value. I'm just going to get a ton of young studs. I'm going to try to deplete somebody's farm system because I know where this organization's going. And even then, but then you have to look at yourself in the mirror as an organization, and the White Sox need to do this. It's like, where are we going here?
Yeah.
What's the next, 3 to 5 years look like? So I think they do listen on just about everybody, but you would have to be blown away and then some if you're considering Luis Robert Jr.
I guess that's true, Nick. And I kind of go back and forth on this because I think earlier in the year when we had this conversation, it was like, I think he's a guy that you definitely need to build around, and he's a cornerstone piece. But the more and more I think about it, with the way, especially, and you mentioned the pitching, where we're at with the pitching staff right now, and it's very depleted, and where there's not a lot there, you're probably not winning a lot of games. Again, the season, the off season hasn't even technically started. Who knows what they're going to do, or what their plans are? But right now, you've got a lot of question marks, and one of them being with your ace, Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease had a fantastic year last year. This past year was a lot of what we saw before the last year, right? It was the uncertainty, the stuff is fantastic and electric, but just, again, couldn't be efficient enough
to finish the job, couldn't put it all together. Sure.
So now it's like, well, who is the real Dylan Cease? Is it what we saw 2 years ago, or is it what we've seen, more the 3 out of the last 4 years with Dylan Cease, or whatever it is, right? The majority of it has not been great. Let's be honest. So getting back to where I was going with Luis Robert Jr., if you have that many question marks with your starting staff, you're not winning a lot of games. Are you going to be able to rebuild it fast enough to line up with his prime years?
Yeah.
Because right now he's entering in his prime years. It used to be in baseball, because of what they allowed in terms of, the drug use that they would allow to have happen. The prime years of a player was much longer. Now, because they've policed it so well in terms of getting all that stuff out of the game, the prime years are so short, not so short, but they're much shorter than they used to be. So you think, where's the timeline? How does it line up? Can we get what we need to get and where we need to get in terms of players and in terms of who's coming up through the system, and line it up right with, you got to be thinking like 3 years down the line. Who are the free agents that are going to be available to us in 2 or 3 years? Can we get young players plus maybe some free agents to fill in some holes to line up when Luis Robert Jr. should still be in his prime? I don't know. I can't do that math, Nick, but boy, something tells me that, I wouldn't, as a fan, I don't want to see it happen, because I would love to see him play the majority of his career in a White Sox uniform. I know it's foolish to think that players will, play their whole careers in one uniform these days. That just doesn't really happen. But I'd like to see him play the majority of it. But part of me wouldn't be upset with the organization if they wanted to move on from him and get as much as they could in return. Is that sacrilegious?
It's not, because of how you phrased it in the big picture. Where this team is actually going, and if they're doing nothing with him and he's wasting away, I mean, like, you're going to have to build. What are you going to use to build up? You got to build something up. Again, I don't think you're going to get the equal worth, but this is it's going to be an interesting off season, the decisions that they make. And still, we know, like, current roster positions, like, what are you going to do with Hendricks? What are you going to do with Tim Anderson? Those are some decisions that have to be made. That's why I want to get this World Series, get this over with, because I want to get this off season going. So, also, I just want to point out, it's been, I got a visual aid here, Pat. I think everybody.
You have a visual aid with you.
Yeah. Okay. I think some people might have gotten these pins, these incorrect. Thank you for being a season ticket holder. Here's your enamel. Here's your little enamel pin with the amount of years. And I don't think anybody got the correct years. Some were just grossly off. Some were undercut. Some were over imagined. And 15 weeks ago, I got the email that said, in 6 to 8 weeks, expect your new pin.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the new pins?
So
I'd
really?
like to have not received.
In 6 to 8 weeks, we will address it. And
no, 6 to 8 weeks, you will have your new pin, your corrected pin. That was 15 weeks ago.
Are these being like cut out of granite, like by hand?
And I want to know, has anybody received their pin? Again, it's not a big deal at all. It's a cheap fix that you can do for your dedicated fans, for your season ticket holders, some that have been 30 plus. And that was Daryl Boston's one job. And he MC21. Yeah, thank you. That was your one job.
He was
Daryl.
Working on him, and he gets let go, and it's like, what can I tell you?
We got someone saying that they got their new pin and it was still wrong. Yumper.
Mercy.
Oh my goodness. That is what is so troubling with me. I have not declared if I'm going to re-up my season tickets. I'm 7 years in, and so this coming season will be my 8th. The new deadline is October 30th, and it's a 20-game plan. That's the plan that works for me. And I like my seats. I like my section. I mean, that comes down to like 3 games a month, less than 4 a month. It's doable. It's absolutely doable. And my kid would enjoy it. To me, it's become the fan experience, how they've treated fans and almost just brushed them off as, you're bothersome to me. Stop requesting these Sox fests. We can't get these pins right. Like these little things. Well, we don't know how to get people into the gates correctly. We don't know how to manage these things. I used to get, and maybe someone could correct me, I used to get a thank you gift as a season ticket holder. It was after the season. You got something. It wasn't grand, but it was kind of a unique little gift, that you could either, put on your, in the basement on a souvenir shelf. You could use it, whatever. It was something. I can't tell you the last time I got a thank you gift. It's been a few years. Those little things start adding up. And then the
Yeah.
way this team is going, I can't blindly just give money to you just because
Yeah.
I'm a diehard fan and it's in my blood and I have no other team. Hell, I love baseball. I absolutely love it. I think it goes without saying. I'm a damn passionate Chicago White Sox fan. And I like the experience. You meet friends, you get together with people, but I mean, come on, give me a little something more. You make me feel kind of special as a season ticket holder,
Yeah.
and anybody buying tickets in general. The product right now is horrible, so incentivize it some other way. You have to.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what is for you as a season ticket holder? What is the value in getting season tickets? I mean, you said
Bingo.
you said 3 games a month. You can still go to 3 games a month without,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
not for nothing, but you might know somebody that could hook you up with tickets once in a while. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I know that person, but you may know a person that could hook you up with tickets once in a while.
Well,
Nick?
it just, those little things, Pat,
Mhm.
customer service is, dead. It's been gone for a while now, right? We see this in
Mhm.
every industry, and I've heard it from a lot of people. And this is not against my ticket rep at all. He knows this. I've sent him messages. It's not on him. He's been amazing, absolutely amazing. I've loved the relationship. This is beyond his payroll. This is
Mhm.
beyond him. This is above some of the stuff that just, I think people are just getting lazy up there,
Yeah.
and they're just like, you know what? And it almost feels sometimes like a big middle finger from Jerry. Like, you want me to sell the team? You're not happy? Well, we're not going to give you all these other things. We're not going to get things correct. We're not going to go above and beyond to make sure you're happy. I mean, what are the White Sox doing right now? White
Yeah.
Sox Charities, the ACE program. I mean, are those the two things they got going on?
I suppose they are, Nick. But that's a really scary way to run a business if you think about it. Like, you're going to play a game of chicken with your fans. Your
Yeah.
fan base that's already shown you that if you don't put a product out there, they're not going to show up, right? So now you want to alienate them even more and encourage them to continue to bring signs to the stadium that say sell the team. If again, we could do this all day. If I own
Yeah.
the team, I do this. If I own the team, I do this. But boy, oh boy, I feel like if I did, Nick, I would want my fan base to love me, right? I'd feel like, and before it got really bad, this is kind of like pre the last couple of years, and God rest his soul, Rocky Wirtz. But you remember Rocky Wirtz was treated, during the glory years of the Hawks run? He's sitting down in a folding chair amongst the fans in section like 113 or
Yeah.
something.
I used to see
People
him out there.
chanting
Yeah.
Rocky,
Yep.
Rocky. They loved Rocky Wirtz because he gave the fans everything that they've longed for, right? They wanted a reason to love the team, and Rocky Wirtz put people in place to put a product on the ice. And John McDonough did a great job in terms of marketing the team, and the fan base loved him for it. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you want your fans to love you? And you know what? To be honest with you, we want to love you, Jerry. We
Yeah.
want to love you
That's
and
the
love your
good point.
team.
That's the point, Pat.
We
Yeah.
don't want to hate you. We don't want to,
Here,
yell
take
at
my
you.
money. Like, I'm willing to give you a ton of money. I'm willing to commit my time. I'm willing to buy your product. Give me a reason why I should continue to do it. Give me a reason why I should bring others as well to
Yeah.
this, to continually get excited about this, even when I know your product is going to be bad.
Yeah.
Give me a reason for the experience, the entity that is the Chicago White Sox. And one of those things I've been clamoring for is a team Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many teams in baseball that have their own Hall of Fame. I know the Cardinals do it, and it's a big thing where they induct, former players, and they do it on a big weekend, and it's awesome. And the Royals have this. You and I have both been to Kauffman Stadium. We've enjoyed that. It's out in the left field kind of concourse area. It's a team Hall of Fame. A lot of memorabilia and relics from their rich history. And So if the Sox are going to continue to poach, and we've kicked this idea around, I kicked it around at Lockdown before. The Sox are going to continue to poach from the Kansas City Royals. Well, then get a Hall of Fame, get a team Hall of Fame, a White Sox Hall of Fame. So, I gave you an assignment America, Pat Hester here, to just come up with, give me 5 players from the White Sox past that you would want to have in that first, induction. Now, here's the thing. All current retired numbers, they're already grandfathered in, of course.
Yeah.
All the White Sox retired numbers. And there's only a few that are, still living, and they'll be there for the first ceremony. They'll all be put in. And so now it's, what 5 would you put in? And we'll call it 5. Who knows? It might only be 2 or 3, in the first class. But I've got some, you've got some. We'll kick some names around. Because I think this is also something that the Hawks did, right? Didn't they bring back, legends, and they had the last shift or whatever, and they were bringing, and they were bonding a previous generation of Hawk fans of like, oh, my heroes. And then you got these young kids that are starting up in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when things started really clicking. And it's 2 worlds combining, and you celebrate the entire history of the Chicago Blackhawks. That's what I want to see for the White Sox. So I'm going to let you kick things off. You can throw a name out.
And I'm sure that folks
would Jerry put himself in the I'm sure he would.
About the team, and that's the owner.
When Michael Scott wants people to roast him, like he'd set up the whole thing just for himself. He's the only person in the first class, and you got to wait next year for 5 people. Sorry, go ahead.
Good Lord. Again, the guys that I'm picking again are players that are from my. I get that. So I didn't go in the Wayback Machine in terms of Sox history. So forgive me for people that are more of historians that'll say, well, how can you put this is from my perspective of being a fan of this team.
Fair enough. Past, I get that.
42 years, that I've been on this earth. So I think number 1, you'd have to recognize Jermaine Dye, because Jermaine Dye is your World Series MVP. He hit his 300th home run in a White Sox uniform. Now, Jermaine didn't have, the eye-popping numbers and stats, but I would say, we're talking about right field earlier, right, Nick? I guess he was probably the most consistent right fielder we've had in the past, 20 years. So again, Jermaine Dye not going to make it to any kind of baseball Hall of Fame, but I think you'd have to include the World Series MVP into your Hall of Fame.
He was on my list for all of those reasons. Man, when he came on the scene, it was like, well, we figured that out. We thought things were going to go differently. We lost Maglio, and he comes in and with the bat, with the glove, and World Series MVP. I think he has to be recognized in the Team Hall of Fame. So I would agree with that one too. Howard mentioned it in the comments here. It's Ozzie Guillen. I've been banging the drum for Ozzie's number to be retired for years. Nobody has worn number 13 in a long time. It's been a long time. Maybe Ozuna as a pitcher wore number 13 briefly. Willie Harris might have worn it accidentally, perhaps, and then he switched numbers. But Ozzie's number should be retired for what he did as a player and as a manager. He wore 11. He got permission to wear 11 because that was retired. He got permission to wear that. But Ozzie Guillen absolutely should be in your first class of Team Hall of Fame. I mean, his number should be retired. If they're not going to retire it right now, then put Ozzie in. So that'd be my guy.
I can't disagree with you at all. And I purposely left him off the list because I knew you would have him on your list. So I didn't have Ozzie on my list, but not because I disagree with you, just because I knew you'd have him. I'll go next, and it's got to be the guy that played to Ozzie's left, and that'd be Robin Ventura. Robin Ventura will probably remembered more for his blunders as a manager, and that's where the lasting memory is. But if you think about those teams in the early 90s, and it was Frank Thomas and Robin Ventura, depending on where they're at in the lineup, hitting around the same part of the lineup together. And the gold, I don't know how many gold gloves he had, but I know he had
several.
Yeah, I know he had several gold gloves. Nobody played third base for me like
Robin,
like Robin did. And unfortunate to see him finish out his career in a Mets uniform. But I loved Robin Ventura, sweet swinging lefty, and started out his career really tough. I think he was 0 for I don't know how many to start out his career. It was just a really terrible way to start after being really highly touted coming out of Oklahoma, I think, if memory serves.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. But I loved watching Robin play, and for me, again, didn't contribute to, a lot of, obviously not a lot of players did, playoff success, but from one of my favorites, and I think deserves a spot in the White Sox Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And what a cool way to bring him back to the organization after the way he had to leave. He resigned, and we all knew it. It just, he was put in a situation that he should have never been put in. We can, we've had Steve from Sox on Tap, who wrote a great article a couple of years ago, I think it's now, on, we got to celebrate Robin Ventura for the player he was, not for what he was as a manager, because that wasn't his fault. He should not have been the manager. They didn't know what they were doing, and they put him in. And but boy, if you've never seen just highlights, just watch some highlights of Robin Ventura and he had those grand slams. And I would say that's a good pick, and great bringing him back into the organization. I mean, make amends. He'd get a standing ovation, no questions about that. Some great names coming in the comments here. Pat, for me, and this is my era, this is your era, saves leader in White Sox history, Bobby Thigpen. Bobby Thigpen is in your first class for the Team Hall of Fame.
He was also on my list, but I added somebody else just in case. Okay. We had the same person. I put Bobby Jenks. And for the reasons why we talked about earlier, like you're talking about somebody that's going to nail down a game. Again, not a long time that Bobby Jenks was, on the South side, but he had that consecutive saves streak that I think was a record for the White Sox.
He's right behind Bobby Thigpen.
I think he's in the top 5 in terms of White Sox saves leaders. So Bobby Thigpen 100% should be in the White Sox Hall of Fame. Just what he was able to do. I mean, it was just nails, right, Nick? You come out of the bullpen, you knew the game was over. He was just a dominant force for us, and it was a great thing. Again, short-lived. It seemed like it was like kind of like both of those guys, both Bobbies, were kind of like firecrackers. It was just they kind of go up, and it was this big burst and colorful lights, and it's amazing. Yeah. And then it was shortly after fizzles away.
Well, he had that nickname Pigpen. For a while, because he just couldn't get it done. He was a Kimbrel. He just couldn't. Dare I say his name? He just could not get the job done at times. But the good folks at Last Comiskey, they captured it so well in their documentary on Bobby Thigpen, and he's in it for me.
Is it my turn or your turn?
It is. It's your turn.
My turn. Okay, so I'm going to go one dog. I'm going to go Lance Johnson.
Oh,
you want to talk about the art of the bunt? Now I know that's very taboo to talk about these days. People don't want to talk about bunt.
No, they don't.
But
they do not.
One dog was not bunting a lot of times, or ever really, to sacrifice. I mean, nobody could drag bunt and get to first like Lance Johnson. You knew he was going to take second base.
57-ounce. He had that just big old piece of lumber, man. Yeah. Deadened the ball. Yeah.
And played a fantastic center field. Was a well above average center fielder. So just one of those guys, set the table, did his job. Love watching Lance Johnson play. Again, the nickname, everything. Just again, you're talking White Sox player, someone that I think of when I was a kid. Watching one of my favorite teams. The teams in the early '90s. Lance Johnson for me would be in the White Sox Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he would I would say, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, Pat. I don't know if he's a first year inductee, but he's definitely getting into the Team Hall of Fame. I would say, depending on how many they usher in. I think Howard mentioned it in the comments, and the guy before my time, but I have read so much about this player. you hear it from White Sox fans in the past to family members, and Dick Allen. Not a lot of time on the South Side, but impactful. And folks, if you have not read the book Chili Dog MVP, I cannot recommend it enough to you. It is it centers around Dick Allen, that 1972 team, but so much more about White Sox history and how this team was, moved multiple different times, whether it's Seattle or Milwaukee, and Dick Allen, really saved this White Sox team, for what he did in that MVP season. Dick Allen should be in the Hall of Fame. There's no question about that in my mind. And he is a first year inductee for a White Sox Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Was that yours, or were you just recognizing?
That's mine.
Howard?
I had that on my list. Yeah, and I agree with Howard. Yeah,
and I don't believe my next guy has. I don't think he's got any kind of recognition or numbers retired. But Jack McDowell for me would be.
He was on my list. Good choice.
He would be. For what he did, Cy Young Award winner, 93. Yes. I mean, just the attitude that he brought to the mound and the art of pitching. He talked about it a lot. You mentioned the last Comiskey documentaries. When you you listen to him talk about, not really having to throw 98 miles an hour to get guys out. It was like, I'm going to pitch to where my defense is. I know my stuff is great. And he struck out a lot of guys, but he'd go deep into innings, or get deep into games rather, with a lot of innings. So one of my favorite guys to watch pitch. And again, another guy that was, didn't finish his career on the South Side, and played for the Yankees, played for Cleveland, but definitely always a South Sider in my heart.
Had him on my list. Excellent choice. And from what I understand, there might be some turbulent relationship, I don't know, with the organization, which I wouldn't be surprised that.
Well, he didn't have glowing things to say about Tony La Russa. So when you talk poorly about Tony La Russa, that's you're in not good standing with the organization.
He's the consultant. So watch out.
You can use him whenever you want. By the way, have we used it? We've reached out to Tony to see if he could help us put a show together. We may need it. We've got a long.
And spoiler: Tony's not on my list. Not even as a manager. Oh, no? I don't have him on this list. But I think so. That was your fourth. Here's my fourth. You've got one more. I've got two more. So this is my fourth. I'm gonna go from the 2005 World Series team, and it's AJ Brzezinski. He has to be in there, and not just for that year. Well, I don't think they win the World Series without AJ Brzezinski, and you could probably say that about several guys. But on the team for a while. 2012, his last year, and we've been looking for a catcher for a long time. Gave you that pop from the left side, Cub killer, which you love, and just the attitude and everything. A guy you hated when he was in a Twins uniform, and loved him. Absolutely loved him on the South Side. So AJ's my pick, my fourth pick.
You actually have another pick, because I have five. I've checked off all of mine. I came in with the Bobby Jenks after you did the Bobby.
That's right.
I kind of jumped in line, so I did a line jump. Okay. So that's all I had on my list for now.
So my last one's just really, I think he's deserving. I don't know if he's a first year, a team Hall of Fame guy. I think he would get in eventually. Spent his entire career in a White Sox uniform. The officer.
Officer
Ron Karkovice.
Hit face, yeah.
Well, that shouldn't be on his plaque. Okay, that they shouldn't put that on his plaque. But he was a force, man. He had a cannon for an arm. Inside the park grand slam, I believe.
Is that right?
I think he's got that on his resume. Okay. And that I was a Carlton Fisk guy, but I caught Carlton Fisk when I was getting into like Little League and everything, and I was a catcher. Carlton Fisk was my guy. But then, in the early 90s, I think Karkovice started really taking over and playing every day. And 10 years, I believe Karkovice was with the White Sox, all, his entire career with the Sox. So he would be my choice.
Yeah, I mean, to look at him, you wouldn't look at him and walking on the street and go, "Oh, there's a professional baseball player right there." But man, I can't disagree with you more, or can't disagree with you at all on that pick. I mean, Officer Ron Karkovice. I mean, you're not stealing on that guy. He was fun to watch behind the plate for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if that ever happens. There's so many teams that do it. I think the Cubs even have one. They've got a team Hall of Fame, and you can create something at the stadium, at the ballpark, where it's not just for scout seat folks that go in to get to see all the memorabilia when they're having their meal, their
Which,
buffet.
by the way, they took out.
They took out. They don't have that anymore.
Yeah, they don't have that anymore, Nick.
Oh,
they took that out. They
well,
took
wait a second.
Out.
Wait a second. I hope somebody catches that. That's such a great, subtle Seinfeld comment. But maybe then they're preparing, they're curating it for the
They did a whole they updated the motif down there, and it's a little bit more swanky.
What a word. $5 word.
The memorabilia was taken out.
Well, I hope it comes back. It's got to go somewhere.
I don't know where it is.
I mean, because that's what you would want in your team Hall of Fame, along with so many other things. And again, if you're poaching from the Royals, that's what I want.
Well, Nick, maybe they're waiting until the new ballpark is ready, wherever that may be put someday.
Yeah.
After you got what 5-6 years left on this lease.
Yeah.
Maybe you just
keep
wait
it in boxes.
Why put anything more into it when you're planning on moving?
And that seems to be the whole, mantra with the organization, just telling fans, just wait. We'll figure something out eventually. Just wait.
Be patient.
We're not going to give you any clear answers. Just wait. All right. We'll end things with a Pedro quote of the week. Hopefully you didn't forget that I still have this in my back pocket. Future to be sponsored by Super Rope, we hope. This is a simple one. It was later in the season. Ozzy kind of went to town on this, as a lot of people did. Here's your Pedro quote of the week. The leaders I thought we had in there weren't leaders, Pedro Grifol. So looking for leaders, didn't think he had leaders. And then, well, if you look in the mirror, Pedro, you were the leader we needed. You were the person that was to set the tone. You were the person that was to do everything that you said you were going to be doing, and then some in the offseason and in Arizona. So, yeah, maybe you were disappointed by some guys, but you were the one that was to keep everybody in line.
I thought we had a manager. I thought we had a manager too. And I looked around and no manager. So interesting. Love it. I love the Pedro quote of the week, and you do a great job of digging those up after a whole year of wonderful quotes from the manager.
Painful, but you got to understand where we came from here. This has been a long season. It has been rough. And there's no shortage, folks. There are so many great Grifol quotes. So I'll keep it going.
Love it, buddy. Love it. Yeah. And then Houston loses tonight. So we got another game. So that's fantastic. Let's go. I guess go Rangers.
Got to go Rangers. I know everybody's got a soft spot for Abreu, and he has done damage in this postseason. Where was it in 2021 when he was in a Sox uniform? But that's great for Abreu as an individual, but I do not want to see the Astros or Kendall Graveman or whoever. I don't want to see that. Go Rangers. I'd like to see a Rangers Philly World Series, and I'm just going to come out and say it. Wouldn't mind to see Philadelphia Phillies win.
I'm getting a Phillies hat if that happens, Nick. And then it'll be like Philly Pat. That'll be great.
That would be great. Patriot Pat is one of my favorite people in football season. So Philly Pat, I'm sure will be a lot of fun too. Folks, thank you so much for jumping in the comments. Loved all the names you're throwing out for the team MVP. Runner-up Maglio, absolutely. The team Hall of Fame, I should say. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. We do this all off season long. You can find the audio of this podcast everywhere. We're on Twitter X at Good Guys TV. We've got a Facebook fan page. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.